Welcome to Total Apex Sports. This is the fourth and goal. I'm here with my guests Cody and Collin from Total Apex Sports and Fantasy. But yeah, we're going to first, before we get into any week two stuff, we can recap week one real quick with the Bears win over the Titans. And I guess it's been like it feels like it's been a year, but the Chiefs Ravens game, just because we have Colin over here, but yeah, I guess we can start with that first. Yeah, what you think of that Ravens game, Colin?
It's not been that close for the Chiefs. We won basically by a toe. That's why. But all in all, it showed a lot of promise for fantasy wise. Rice showed that hey, he's gonna be the dominant one. Xavier Worthy, I know he scored 2 touchdowns, but he was getting up. Out of the 3 opportunities he got, he made the most of it. I would be a little bit worried about Kelsey for fantasy, but other than that, I
Yeah,
like how the Chiefs play. How about for you and your
yeah,
Ravens?
I feel like even though Mahomes' stat line wasn't like amazing or anything, like I feel like against bad teams like that, like the game might be over by like halftime. I feel like because yeah, they didn't even have to get everyone involved. But yeah, Cody, we can talk about the Bears win over the Titans. I mean, that was not what I would expect for them winning that game, but I mean, hopefully they can rebound on Sunday Night Football.
Yeah, no, that game was crazy, and I made the choice to listen to the game on the Bears home radio network, so you kind of get like the
Hmm.
the home field vibe, and
Oh yeah,
man, it's just like Bears fans, man, they've had it rough for so long with poor quarterback play, and just ever since the Super Bowl loss to the Colts, it's just kind of been one thing after another, and they're really scarred, and so it was fun to kind of hear the Bears home announcers. I mean, when things like started going off the rails in the first quarter, like at halftime, the home announcers were just throwing the Bears under the bus, like totally, like here we go again, and and this
yeah,
is wrong. O line, Caleb Williams hype is not what it's lived up to be, and then all of a sudden, like click. Bears defense and special teams take over in the second half, and it was a really fun, entertaining game. But I mean, you don't win very many when you can't score on offense. That's for sure.
right. Um, yeah, and also with the receivers, Rome Madunze has a MCL sprain, so he's week to week. I don't think he will be ready for this week. Like just because like they have the luxury, not like they don't have to rush him back. Um, but I was surprised with the. I don't know if it was the Titans pass rush, but a lot of like intended first three targets to Keenan Allen, like more than I thought uh, they were going to. I heard from another podcast where um, they kind of used Keenan Allen as the deep ball guy and like DJ Moore more in the short to intermediate. But I would think like that would be the opposite of what their ideal skill sets are. But yeah, where do you see that going?
Yeah, I mean, I've been kind of preaching up Keenan Allen's fantasy value all off season. As long as he can keep that foot healthy, I still think he's going to have a nice year for fantasy managers. But yeah, in this game, I think they just saw a matchup that they liked a little bit better in that Titans secondary. And the Titans came to play, man. Like that defensive line is no joke. They got after and exposed the Bears' offensive line. They played poorly, even though the highest graded player on offense was Nate Davis, the right guard. He only played 18 snaps, right? He was rotating the whole game with Ryan Bates. So the right side of the line graded a little bit above average for PFF, and it just kind of went down from the center on down to the left tackle from there. So they had some good plays, but they broke down at some real crucial moments and allowed some hurries, some pressures, some hits on Caleb. They didn't block well versus that defensive front during the run game, and yeah, it was ugly. So a lot for the Bears to work on this week, and hoping they can perform a little better on Sunday Night Football.
Yeah. And to cap off week one, Colin, was there any I guess for fantasy any surprises that you saw come about from the other teams?
For me, number one, it'd be Bengals versus Patriots. I don't know
Oh
what
yeah.
happened that game. Wasn't there? I'm pretty sure Mike Gesicki dropped a touchdown pass
Uh
because
huh.
he didn't turn around fast enough. Tanner Hudson fumbled another one. So if you have Bengals players, I wouldn't worry too much, but I would be on the lookout other than Jamar Chase to maybe try and upgrade at that position.
Yeah, I think T Higgins didn't practice again this
No.
today. So I mean I don't know I guess the hamstring injury he suffered in practice last week is still lingering. But I mean yeah overall that I mean they do still have Chase and he should get more targets gradually. Just because he wasn't really practicing that much this offseason, but in terms of the other Bengals receivers, that definitely without Higgins, that definitely lowers the stock on guys like Burrow and even Zach Moss because they just won't get as many red zone attempts if they can't move the ball. But yeah, we can go to week two with Sunday Night Football with Bears versus Texans, and yeah, Cody, this is going to be a very big test for Caleb just in the second week of his NFL career.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a litany of things for that Bears offense to work on this week to try to get ready for their primetime game. But really, we just need to see a little bit of cohesiveness from that offensive line. I think Caleb needs to get better with his clock management, right? They need to get up to the line quicker. They need to get plays called quicker. They need to give that offensive line time to, read the defense a little bit more so they're not so rushed to get the snap off, right? And Coach Eberflus, after the Titans game, said that Caleb, he lost his footwork in that game. He needs to get back to the basics, get his footwork locked in. And, I think if he focuses on a couple of those little things, he does still have a chance with his talent to shine in this game.
Yeah, I also think they'll probably go back to the run a little bit just because the Titans defensive front when they have Jeffrey Simmons and Tavondre Sweat up there, so that's going to be a tough task to just run in the middle with that line. But yeah, speaking of Bengals before, uh, Joe Burrow normally had pretty good performances against the Chiefs for whatever reason. Doesn't change on Sunday.
Yes, it will. As much as I hate the Bengals, I have to respect them. It is week to week. The Chiefs have been blown out multiple times and then went on to win the Super Bowl and appear in the AFC Championship game. So I don't care. That's last week. I'm sure the Bengals are going to change it up, and they're just only going to play better this week, and it's going to be a real nail biter for the Chiefs this week.
Yeah, I would say I am interested to see if they just can get I guess more usage from the running backs because yeah, Chase Brown, what people thought it was gonna be more of a 50-50, but that was more of just it was Zach Moss's backfield and Chase Brown was the just the pass catching back on third down occasionally, but yeah, I still would definitely favor the Chiefs in that one. But yeah, we can go to the positional rankings and well, before we do that, do you guys have any big takes for this week specifically? Potentially maybe more of a fringe top 10 player being a top 5 player this week.
I do have one name, and that's going to be Xavier Legette against the Chargers. He led the Panthers'
Oh,
offense in
wow.
targets, and he only played, I think, less snaps than any of the receivers out there. So this is also just me. I liked Legette. I loved him in college, so I am biased towards this. But I think if he starts going against the Chargers, Bryce Young is going to be looking towards him a lot during this game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. He actually, I saw he had he had 7 targets in
Seven targets.
basically a blowout.
He got more targets than Deontay Johnson. I wrote a report
Yeah.
early in the offseason was like the offense is going to flow through Deontay Johnson, and doesn't seem to be it.
Yeah. Right. But yeah, we can go through some of the tiers. We can start at receiver. Um, yeah, I mean Tyreek Hill, CeeDee Lamb, uh, AJ Brown, but I think the two in the top 5 definitely. I think Amon-Ra gonna bounce back. I'm so shocked that I mean I guess the Rams definitely schemed him out. They intentionally um, covered for him in that game. Same thing with Laporta too. Um, but yeah, Amon-Ra against the Bucks, he's gonna bounce back, and with the Puka Nacua injury, Cooper Cup is going to. I don't know how sustainable 20 20 catches is gonna or 20 targets is gonna be, but yeah, I think he's gonna be a top 5 receiver this week.
Yeah, I mean, it
Actually,
was crazy. Cooper Cup going off last week too, with Puka still healthy. It was nice to see. It was like Cooper Cup's back after what a year and a half of kind of being banged up and not the record setting form we saw a couple years ago. But yeah, I think he's going to see some bracket coverage here and there, and they're going to try to take him away and force Matthew Stafford to throw the ball to Cody Parkinson and Demarcus Robinson and try to make some of the other players beat him. But he's just too good of a route runner. You can never take Cooper Cup away unless he's hobbled.
right. Real quick, we have a comment by Nelly Fly. I need to start 2 of these guys, PPR, Zay Flowers. He's going against the Raiders. Pickens, which is against they're going against the Broncos, I'm pretty sure, and then
Broncos.
Zach Moss against the Chiefs. Najee Harris with Broncos, Keon Coleman tonight. I would probably lean towards. I mean, Colin, you want to start with this one? I'll see if I have a different take.
I'm gonna go either Zay Flowers and George Pickens, or if not, if you don't like George Pickens, I'd go Najee Harris. Zay Flowers for sure. I think he performed pretty well against the Chiefs. He's only going to do better against the Raiders. So
yeah,
obviously your start 1 for number 2. For me, it's a toss up between the 2 Steelers.
Yeah, I think I go Najee just because the Denver defense, you can run against them. Ken Walker did that last week. So in terms of touchdown equity and stuff, I would definitely give the nod to Harris. But Cody, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm with you. You got to start Zay Flowers against the Raiders secondary, man, this week. That's got to be in your lineup for sure. And then I'm with you on Najee Harris. After seeing what Kenny Walker was able to do against that Broncos defense last week, whereas the Chiefs last week they contained Derrick Henry. I don't like Zach Moss in that matchup. So yeah, I'm going Najee and Zay on that one.
Yeah, I think that Bengals Chiefs it could definitely be a shootout, and then it might be a kind of a repeat with what the Ravens Chiefs game was, where they have to maybe they have to do more dump off passing to Chase Brown or scheme some more downfield shots. But yeah, in terms of the receivers, um, I think Jefferson and Garrett Wilson, Chase, they're definitely right behind those top 5. And then I guess this is going to be interesting to see if Baker can sustain an offense with both Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, because last year it was mostly Mike Evans, but Chris Godwin also had a blowout game last week against the Commanders. I mean, their second is pretty poor, but Yeah. I guess with that next tier, do you see any of those guys potentially going into the S ranking?
Number one for me would probably be Garrett Wilson because Aaron Rodgers, he was looking for him
Okay.
nearly every single passing attempt. And Garrett Wilson played against the Niners. That's not an easy defense
Yeah.
to get open. And there was many plays where Garrett Wilson simply just out muscled the other defenders. So against the Titans, I think Garrett Wilson could be top 5 and possibly even top 3 this week.
Yeah, definitely true. They just didn't get the ball that much. Like they kind of got outscripted with the Niners run game because the Jets defense couldn't stop them. So yeah, I think it could be a different result against the Titans. But yeah, Cody, anyone you see that maybe we can go from B to A or A to F?
Yeah, man. Kind of going back to your comment about Baker Mayfield being able to feed both Godwin and Evans. I think this week is another Godwin game. If you look at what Cooper Kupp was able to do out of the slot last week against that Lions team, you got to like his outlook
Yeah.
this week, because he's kind of back to running in the slot this year. Godwin is, the past year or two, year and a half, he's kind of been more outside, hasn't been as productive. He had a great game last week against the Washington Commanders. So I could definitely see Godwin kind of leapfrogging a little bit. And just to see Marvin Harrison Jr. ranked ahead of Godwin kind of makes me wonder a little bit, especially, like he doesn't have quite as good of a matchup, I don't think, there. Where do you guys stand on Marvin Harrison after his week 1 showing?
I had faith in him for this upcoming week, but then there
Uh-huh.
was that comment from Kyler where he says, "It's not my job to feed him targets," and I'm benching him right now for this week. I do not care if the quarterback is saying it's not my job to feed him targets when he's wide open in the end zone. Then I'm gonna bench him and just pray he can prove me wrong later in this season.
Yeah, it's
Yeah, that's
real scary.
yeah.
Like, uh, to hear that comment from a quarterback to the media, you never want to hear that. But it's like most people, I mean, depending on the size of their league, they had to invest a 2nd-round pick to get him. Like I'm in a 14-team keeper league, and he went in the 1st round. Like, are you really going to bench your 1st or 2nd-round player? I mean, you got to have some backups, right? So that's a precarious situation. I don't know if I could live with myself if I benched him and he showed up that game, but it's like if you do bench him and he has another dud, then you look like a genius.
Yeah. I think Marvin Harrison is going to be the Calvin Ridley of this season, where he does just good enough in most games where it's like, can I start him? I should start him. But then he's going to have some games where he puts up 1 or 4 points. And then he's like, why did I start him?
Right. Yeah, that's kind of why I have him in this like C tier because it's like, him, like Terry McLaurin had a bad game, DK Metcalf, Pickens, well Cooper should have had a good game, but yeah, I don't know if we want to go into that. But yeah, they're in this like range where like you kind of want to see it first. Well, actually, speaking of the B tier, I'll probably move Rishi Rice into A tier because, like, against the Bengals, like he should be able to. I guess the only reason maybe he wouldn't is if he doesn't score, but he just seems so much he has such a like. I guess him. I guess Devonta Smith kind of they have a very good floor to where even if they don't score, like they'll get 15 in PPR. Like I don't think you would have to worry about that most weeks. Um, but yeah, like this B to C, it's like it was pretty difficult for me to find out like who is safe in this tier because um, yeah, I guess for Harrison that I mean, I wasn't really gonna reach for a rookie like that, like especially with like neighbors going like 2 rounds later or 3 rounds later. But yeah, I would definitely wait and see on them for now. I guess any other. I mean, if you're starting anyone in the D tier, like that's just like a dart throw. I did put like Jameson Williams, like some of these rookies in the C tier just because, like if they can show another week steady output, then they might become flex starters for sure.
The only player I see in the C tier that I think should be moved up is Lad McConkey, purely off of two things.
Okay.
One, he's in the slot, which typically in PPR formats they get the most targets, and two, he's playing against the Panthers. He's gonna dominate. He put up 14 points against the Raiders last week, so I think Lad McConkey could easily find the end zone again and get 8 to 10 targets this game.
Yeah. He kind of surprised me. I think definitely emerging at the wide receiver one over there, over Palmer and Quinn Johnston. But yeah, him and Dobbin should be the focal point this week. But Cody, anything else from the receiver group?
How are you guys feeling about Michael Pittman? You think he has a bounce back game? Yeah. It's like in that game against the Texans last week, it was really entertaining. And boy, Anthony Richardson, he really like spread the ball out. Like there wasn't any one real dominant target share pass catcher on the Colts. I could see if there's a Michael Pittman game coming up. I mean, I could maybe see him leapfrogging up into the next tier there. What are your guys' thoughts on him being essentially the wide receiver one for the Colts? Does he still wear that title, you think?
I think he's the wide receiver. Okay. I think he's the wide receiver one, but he is not weapon number one. That is always going to be Jonathan Taylor. And Michael Pittman, I would love to see a bounce back game from him, but right now, I think he puts up maybe 10 to 12 points as like a respectable season, but not a redemption week is what I would say he has.
Yeah, I saw from that game. Anthony Richardson only threw the ball like 11 times, like 9 times, but he barely threw the ball. But Cody, you're right. Like they spread the ball like all around to Alec Pierce. And they even had Adonai Mitchell on a few deep shots that Anthony Richardson almost connected. So in terms of like Pittman going for like 20, I'm not sure about that anymore. But as a safe like PPR guy, if you need like 10 points, then yeah, he could be in that tier for sure, but not like a receiver one.
Yeah, who would you take out of if you had to put Michael Pittman into B, who would you pop out of there?
Chris Olave.
Is it Chris Olave?
Chris Olave. Purely because who are they playing this week? How do I not know that? Dallas, yeah, I'm taking on Chris Olave. That pass rush is going to put Derek Carr, and I don't know if Chris Olave and Derek Carr are beefing, but only giving 2 targets to your wide receiver one, who is by far your best or second best weapon behind Kamara, is not good. And yes, it was a blowout, and I expect this game to be closer, so they're going to be passing the ball more, but still only 2 targets to him, and he's going to have a much better. I know they have J.C. Horn, but still, I don't like Chris Olave this season. I don't like him this week either.
Yeah, well, speaking of like young receivers, I'm noticing I should probably take Drake London down a tier because man, the Falcons are going to be a headache again if Kirk Cousins can't feed him the ball. Neighbors, I did see he was put on the injury report, so it is the Commanders secondary. So I guess what I'll do is I guess I would put Worthy up here too, just because like he could be used like 3 times all game. Like he can score 3 touchdowns. Like I don't think it matters. Like he just has to be in a little bit of a more of a flex range week to week. compared to like the rest, where we kind of would like to see another week out of them to see what their upside is. But yeah, Worthing's upside is like it's crazy.
So, Colin, I got to ask you, man, what's the scoop on Hollywood Brown? Is he going to see a few snaps this game, or are they going to keep him out?
I think they're going to keep him out one more time. They're in no rush, especially. I don't think T. Higgins is going to play this week. We showed we can beat actual contenders without him. I think we're going to keep him out, make sure he's healthy, because if you rush him back, he gets hurt again, and boom, we lose him for another 4 weeks, maybe even longer. Maybe we lose him for the whole season. I would prefer we held him out one more week, and then we test him out in week 3.
So, Andrew, would you still move Xavier Worthy up if you knew Hollywood was going to play?
I think so. Just because we don't exactly know like what his target share is going to look like on the outside. Because I presume Hollywood's going to be more of a outside guy, and then they're going to use Worthy on those schemed up looks. And those are, I would consider those more valuable. It's just if Worthy doesn't get a touchdown, then it is more boom or bust. So maybe you can consider him like in between the B or C, but at least for against the Bengals, I would, and especially if Hollywood's out, I would trot him out there for sure. But yeah, we can go to the running backs next. And all right, yeah. So we got we got Breece Hall at the top. I think he can have a bounce back game because that fumble I think really hurt their momentum, and like I think the last time he fumbled was like in his rookie year. Like he does not fumble that much. So yeah, him, Saquon. I had a tough time with the S and A tier for these running backs just because of like the matchup. And anything would you change out of this top group? I guess I could put some of these guys down, but I just want to hear your opinion first. We can start with Colin.
As much as I love him, I'm going to move Pacheco down one tier. I know he's playing against the Bengals, and Ramondre Stevenson ripped them up, but Pacheco, he scares me because he carried the ball 9 times last game. We are not a run-first team, so it's either he finds the end zone and he does good, or he doesn't find it and he does bad. Now, he is the goal line back, which is great for us or for anyone who has him in fantasy. So, but it's going to be a score or bore for me with Pacheco.
Yeah, they did use Samaje Perine and Carson Steele like a little more than I thought they would have. Just because like they signed Samaje Perine like 2 weeks ago, so I think maybe for like a play Pacheco was banged up, but yeah, I can see your point. If he's only getting like less, like maybe like 11, 12, 13 carries a game, like he ain't gonna be yardage based and or touchdown based. Kind of like David Montgomery in a way, but it's just like the touchdown equity is only going to Pacheco. But yeah, I did see that for tonight's game, Devon Achane, he's questionable. It's going to be a game time decision. They ruled out Mostert. If he plays, would you still put him in this like top 5 to 10 tier, or would you move him down against the Bills? Colin or Cody, you can start with that.
Okay, I must be having a couple glitchy issues here. I didn't hear the question. I wasn't sure if I was even still connected. Can you guys hear me all right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was asking if Devon Achane plays without Raheem Mostert, should he still be considered in that top 10 tier or is the risk too much? Yeah. Okay.
I can do it.
Yeah, Collin, you
Devon,
can answer that question first.
Devon Achane, I like him. He's a great fantasy player for us. Anyone that got him in the late second, early third right now is whooping and hollering, but it's that ankle injuries that scares me because he could easily take a weird hit again and boom, he's out for the rest of the game. And they have Jalen Wright, who they drafted in the third round. They still have Jeff Wilson, so they still have a power and speedy back. But you have to start him just because of his ceiling is so much higher than most other running backs. So I would say you gotta start him if you got him.
Yeah.
Yeah, I concur. I think I might be
Right.
back online right now. Yeah, I'm with
Oh,
you.
no, yeah,
I
you're good.
wouldn't be surprised if we see a little bit of Jeff Wilson Jr. tonight, along with Achan. You know, if he goes, kind of that just use the guys you have. You're not going to be out a ton, I think. Going against the Bills' rush defense. James Conner had a pretty nice day against them last week, but yeah, I'm with Collin on that one. If Achan goes, you got to start him. Way too much upside.
Yeah, so this is a dilemma I'm having in my league. I have Jordan Mason and Devon Achane, and then I have Brian Robinson against the Giants. I want to start Achane, but yeah, if he puts up a dud, it's gonna really hurt. But yeah, I would say like him and Mason. I think I had Mason somewhere. Let's just. I would just definitely have Mason, in that top tier, like as like a must-start player. I mean, the Viking defense is pretty good, but he tore up the Jets, the other night. So I would definitely start Mason. Um, yeah. Well, Colin, you were saying how like Jonathan Taylor should still be the focal point. Um, with his because he's not really catching many passes. Do you think that would bring him down a tier in PPR, or do you still think the goal line work is pretty high for him?
I would bring him down a tier because of who his quarterback is now. Anthony Richardson is going to be taking a lot of goal line work for him because they're able to draw more plays, whether it's QB draw, short jet sweep passes. They still have Adonia Mitchell. They have a very underrated receiving core, in my opinion. But Jonathan Taylor, I still believe he will only continue to heat up, build more chemistry with Anthony Richardson, because this is his first game playing with Richardson since he got hurt early in last season. Taylor was on the field for a while. So there's very little, if any, chemistry on the field during an actual game between those two. And I feel like as this season goes on, Taylor's going to come back into that role of like, hey, me and this guy, we're going to dominate, and there's nothing you can do to stop us. We talk about the Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry combination. I can't wait to see the Taylor and Richardson combination.
Yeah, I think it's gonna depend on it's definitely gonna be like a matchup thing, like whether or not they run the ball more, or if they decide to pass the ball more than they did last week. What Taylor's upside is, but yeah, like he kind of because I wanted to keep Mixon at A tier with some of these guys, but I don't know, Cody. How is the Bears rushing defense? I know Pollard had a decent day last weekend.
Yeah, I mean, there was two really suspect position groups heading into that matchup with the Titans, and that's both sides of the line, right? Offensive line, defensive line. So They did not look good against the run. They got bullied up front by the Titans' offensive line. They were able to get after Levis a little bit and had some sacks and some hits and some hurries and stuff like that. So, their edge rush did pretty well. But if the big key for this game, I think, for the Bears' rush defense is defensive tackle Zach Pickens. He's a big bodied dude. He's been battling a groin injury that he sustained in camp. It held him out of last week's game. He was a limited participant in practice yesterday. Practice reports should be out by now. We'll see if he was able to get in another limited session. If he's back, I would say he's going to help shore up a little bit of that run defense up the middle, for Joe Mixon. My thing about Jonathan Taylor is like moving him down a tier. I'm hesitant to do that, and here's why. Right? He had 100% of the running back touches, snaps in that game. Like he was one of, I think, only two or three other guys. And so what's fantasy football all about, like when you boil it down, right? It's opportunity. And so if he's going to have that type of snap share going up against a Packers run defense that just got blown apart by Saquon, like I think Saquon and Jonathan Taylor as a talent, they're quite similar, right? So I think until we see back-to-back sort of like that mediocre to dud performance that we kind of had from Jonathan Taylor, like I'm still going to keep him up there as long as he's getting that kind of opportunity.
Yeah, and speaking of Saquon, like him, Jahmyr Gibbs, Bijan Robinson, even Kyler Williams against Arizona. He had huge games last year against them. They're all basically must starts. Derrick Henry should bounce back against the Raiders since they're favored by like 9.5. James Conner, kind of the same thing. Like he basically gotten all the touches against the Rams defense that did get exposed by the Lions. And then for the A tier, I only had Walker here because he ain't going against the Patriots defense that might be a little tougher, and also he has a abdomen injury. I think he's had this injury for every year basically. So they just might limit him. So we'll see. James Cook and Rashad White, they're getting there and Kamara, they're getting there with the receiving work. I am maybe I shouldn't be, but we'll have to see like a more competitive game against the Lions. But they used Bucky Irving like a decent amount, and he was definitely more productive on the ground than Rashad White. So that's why maybe he's not going to be in the top tier, but he'll be like a tick below. But we'll have to see in like a more competitive game. Another thing was with ETN. How do you guys view ETN with the Tank Bigsby stuff?
Dude, I am scared. Like I own several shares of ETN this year, and like what I saw in game one scared me for ETN's fantasy value this year. I liked Tank Bigsby last year. I was just maybe a little bit early on that one because ETN kind of dominated, the snaps last year. But I think this is going to be a true blue timeshare backfield as long as they both stay healthy. So probably lost out on some draft capital for people who took ETN.
Yeah, to piggyback off what Cody was saying, I'm 110% kind of hopping off the ETN train. I loved him, which sucks. I drafted him a lot this year, but now I'm shaking, and I picked up Tank Bigsby just in case it does start to lean one way or the other. Like, hey, how do I know it's not going to lean more towards the Tank Bigsby favor over ETN? You don't. You just got to predict and hope.
Right. Like, he's getting kind of like the Pacheco workload. Like, he had 12 carries last week. He had a touchdown, but he could have had a second one if he didn't fumble. But yeah, the thing with the Tank Bigsby stuff, it wasn't even like it was like later in the game or anything, or like he was hurt. It was just like from the moment on, they were kind of like maybe not rotating, but there was definitely like an incentive to get Big B involved way more than last year. So yeah, that is that definitely gonna cap his ceiling. Um, I do have Kamara, yeah, and he also ETN going against the Browns defense, so that's a tough matchup for him. Same with Kamara, he's going against Dallas. So, but I mean, he could. I'm like iffy on Like, what do you guys think about Kamara? Because he has the 3-down workload, but it is a pretty tough matchup. The Saints were really good last week, but that was against the Panthers.
Yeah, I have some shares of Kamara this year. You're able to get Kamara pretty cheap as a fantasy manager this year, which was nice week 1, right? He definitely helped me win my matchups. We'll have to see. I think you still have to start Kamara, whether he's your RB1 or your RB2. I think you still got to roll him out there, even against a tough Dallas run defense, because, again, it's that volume. There's nobody there, right? Like Kendry Miller, he's on IR, and it's like, are you really scared about Jamal Williams? Like, until we see a downtick in his usage, I think you got to roll him out, even against tough Ds.
Yeah, I agree with Cody.
Yeah. Any other from the B to C or the D tier? Anyone that that's interesting? I think Ford. I think I'm leaning toward moving him up because he like all these other backs. Like he did see like 13 carries, but I mean he did pretty well with them, even in like a mostly pass heavy game in a tough matchup. So against like maybe the Jags, like he can do a little bit more than last week.
I agree with Fort being in B tier. I think he's gonna have a good game this week against the Jaguars. So I can't wait to see what he can do though.
Yeah. But for Josh Jacobs, I mean, I'm kind of not sure how to view the Jordan Love injury now that Malik Willis is in. It could help, but then at the same time, it could hurt, just like the lack of potential rushing touchdown. But he could get more involved. So, Cody, where do you see that come into play?
Yeah, I mean, we talked about Josh Jacobs before week 1's matchup in Brazil against the Eagles. And, he had a couple nice runs toward the end of the game when he got pissed and he got angry and he ran pretty hard. But before that, he did not look good running the football. He looked kind of just like he did towards the end of last year for the Raiders. Wilson looked like he had a little bit more juice, a little bit more bounce in his legs. And I just saw today that Marshawn Lloyd got in a limited practice today. We're going to see him at some point. And we already saw Wilson in game 1. You fold Lloyd into that with the 2 other guys. Like, I'm not confident having Josh Jacobs as a must start. But it's hard to say, bench him this week. I think we got to kind of see maybe, a little bit bigger sample size, another week or 2 before we can talk about benching him for what fantasy managers had to pay to get him this year. But yeah, it's not going to surprise me at all if he kind of dips down into the C tier for sure.
Yeah, I think. Okay.
I'm actually going to go ahead and disagree with you two on this one. He's playing against the Colts this week, and last week Joe Mixon got over 150 yards against him on 30 carries. Now, am I saying Josh Jacobs is better than Joe Mixon? I don't know. Asked me 2 years ago, I always said, hell yeah. This year and last year, I'm not so sure. But Josh Jacobs, I think he knows this is going to be a make or break game for him with Lloyd coming back. Williams, he looked productive on some of the carries he got. But Jacobs, I think this is going to be a bounce back week for him where he can put up 15 to 20 points for a guy.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, it's tough. I think if the Colts load the box. Like I see like there's Packers are still holding out hope that maybe Jordan Love's going to play. I don't think he's going to play. So if you think that they're going to just let Malik throw it all over the yard, I doubt it, man. I think they're going to load the box, and I think just the fact that Love is hurt, I think it's a definite downgrade in my opinion for Josh Jacobs, just because that's what they're going to try to stop, right? Like zone read options, Malik keepers, giving it to Jacobs up the middle on veer runs and stuff. But yeah, I mean, he definitely has something to prove, and he's a player that likes to play with a chip on his shoulder. I know that as a Raiders fan, watching Jacobs for years. He had some real fun games when he was doubted by all the naysayers and the haters. So you might get a good Jacobs game. I mean,
yeah, you definitely, if you don't have two guys or even three guys in the top two tiers, then the B tier and I guess the C tier is just gonna have to roll out there. But yeah, definitely like a matchup thing for sure. Like the same thing with Brian Robinson. He was more of the lead back than Eckler. And Eckler was barely, he wasn't even that involved other than the receiving game and not even that much, to be honest. But yeah, I would consider them more in, if you have them, if they're your only option, then you kind of have to just roll them out there. But yeah, we can go to the tight ends real quick, and then the quarterback. Um, I think it's pretty straightforward. I mean, after everyone was complaining about the unless you had Likely somehow, most of the tight ends did pretty bad, but I would still say Laporta, McBride. I mean, even the only reason why I would put Andrews at A is just because Likely is taking just as many routes as him, so that kind of potentially has an opportunity, but I think he can still have a bounce back week. But yeah, Colin, any thoughts on the tight end for this matchup?
I'm trying to give critiques, but I really can't. Kincaid, I was high on Kincaid. Oh man, I thought he was going to rip apart the Cardinals, but I guess it was just a track meet because he got in a fuck ton of cardio. Oh, yeah. I'm mad about that, but I can't really say anyone deserves to rise or fall on this list. But I don't know. What do you think, Cody?
Yeah, I don't know. I'd say you got to downgrade Brock Bowers. I think against the Ravens defense, who really kind of kept Kelsey. Yeah, they kept Kelsey out of the game last week. I think until you see something from the Raiders offense, there's just too many mouths to feed there. I think with Devontae, Jacoby Myers, who's a really good professional football wide receiver. I mean, that guy. I feel bad for the Raiders' weapons, man. But you got to downgrade Bowers, I think, a little bit for this matchup. I don't know. Like Trey McBride, he's going to have another tough matchup this week going against the Rams, who kept Sam Laporta in check last week. I don't feel great about starting him, but you have to. I mean, it's a no-brainer. Tight end McBride, you got to start him for what you invested in him this year. But I don't think we're going to see a monster game out of him. That's not to say that maybe Kittle's going to outscore him. I could see that happening definitely, but it's tight ends had a rough week one. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, Kincaid killed me too, man. It's like you thought he was going to be target numero uno for a boy Josh Allen, and it just didn't work out that way. They spread the ball everywhere, and then he just started running like a fullback. So yeah, it's nuts, man.
The thing I'll say with McBride is he did have a decent amount of targets. It was just about 4 or 5 of them they couldn't connect. I mean, Laporta is an every time starter. Doesn't really matter for the matchup. Kelsey could come back, but between him and Andrews and Kincaid, like they're pretty close. I mean, the one thing with Kincaid, at least, is that he did, like you said, he ran a lot of cardio. He was out there. But it is a little different than the Andrews just because the Bills have so many different more weapons, and Josh Allen's gonna take it himself most of the time. And also with James Cook catching passes as well, like there's a lot of mouth to feed over there. So I would downgrade him a little bit, but for like Kyle Pitts and Kittle, like they could go into the S tier too. I mean, Pitts got a touchdown, so that was good last week for him. But I don't know how much you make of that performance. Just because like the targets were about the same for all these guys.
Yeah, I could see maybe Goddard having a bounce back game. I mean, he was pretty much silenced by the Packers last week, but he's too good of a player. Playing against Atlanta, I know Freiermuth had a few catches for the Steelers last week. He just got paid, that game. Maybe he was happy about that. But, the Falcons defense didn't play as well as they kind of look on paper. They had a couple big acquisitions this offseason. So, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if Goddard had a nice day over the middle for the Eagles against the Falcons there. But, yeah, man, it's tough to see.
I mean, basically at tight end, you're just hoping they just run a lot of routes and then just hopefully catch a few passes. I will say, like, Evan Ingram, like, he was quiet, but I think he'll be quiet again this week. Keep going against the Browns, and they locked up Jake Ferguson pretty well. And also Ferguson's now hurt. So I don't even know where to put Schoonmaker in this mix, but but for Bowers, like even in a tough matchup into this week, I think his outlook is actually pretty good, just because like he was more featured than I thought he would be. Like you would think like they have Adams, Myers, but he got like eight targets, I think, like 7 targets. Like he was decently featured, but yeah, like with the quarterback situation, it's gonna be iffy just in general, like for their touchdown upside.
Yeah, I mean, maybe if we had a chance, I hadn't looked at the advanced metrics for Bowers at all to see if those targets he got were real quality targets. But yeah, I'm just worried, man, that Ravens on the road, East Coast time, coming off a bad loss where that offense looked terrible. I mean, you'd love to see a bounce back game, but man, I don't know. It's just tough for me to see, but I'm a little biased. I'm a little too close to it, maybe. But
yeah, I mean, basically, if you have any tier for S, A, or B, you're just starting them and hoping for the best. I guess the one guy I didn't add was Taysom Hill. He could be in this B tier. He almost caught a touchdown fade in the end zone last week. So I mean, well, he's a boomer bust guy, but he had more involvement than I would have thought. I guess even against like the Panthers, but it's not really it wasn't a highly competitive game early. So yeah, I mean these guys are just who you're just gonna start and have to hope for. The one guy I am missing is Colby Parkinson for the Rams. He got a decent amount of looks without Puka Nacua in there, so he could be. If he has another good showing, he could be in like the C to B range, like moving forward. He was a tight end for Seattle, but yeah, till Tyler Higbee comes back, coming off of his injury, he could be someone to look out for.
Yeah, I thought Noah Fant was a good play, like in DFS slates last week. He just didn't pan out, man. He didn't get the targets we thought he would see against that Broncos defense, and he kind of got hobbled during the game. And I think he's officially listed as questionable right now. But yeah, he's a player to keep an eye on. He's got the talent to jump up a tier, but man, he just didn't have the usage. So I don't know if that was injury related or what. But yeah.
Yeah, the whole Seattle offense, like I was expecting like more vertical shots, but Metcalf was held in check. Jensen didn't do anything. It was mostly just Ken Walker, but yeah, that hopefully that upgrade that upticks like a bit more. Well, actually, the only guy that that just doesn't go away is Tyler Lockett. He had a decent outing for
He
week
did.
one. Yeah. But yeah, in terms of quarterback, I think you kind of just have to start everyone from S to A to B tier. I mean, in Superflex, you might have to start like Herbert, Lawrence, Caleb, or Rogers, Derek Carr, Kirk Cousins. Like they're not bad options, but in one QB league, like it would definitely be, you know, the Josh Allen, Lamar, Mahomes, and then hopefully Hurts bounces back. But yeah, Anthony Richardson, like he's gonna be F tier in quarterback, like till he gets hurt. I mean, hopefully he doesn't, but you know what I mean.
Well, Andrew, you're doing our leading scorer of quarterbacks for fantasy dirty, man. You got Baker all the way down there. Man, you got to move him up. The dude's got nothing but weapons outside, right? And Evans and Godwin. I feel
Yeah,
like
that's true.
Baker's going to have to throw the ball and score points against the Lions this week. Um, I like that you have Justin Fields in the B tier. He's kind of a sleeper for me this week. After seeing that huge
Mhm.
run that Geno Smith pulled off against that Broncos defense last week, I bet the Steelers
Right.
are watching that tape and they are finding ways to exploit the Broncos defense and use Justin Fields' legs. I love that you have him up there in that B tier. It's like, Caleb Williams in the same tier as our boy Justin Herbert over there in Los Angeles. I don't know. Caleb Williams got to show us something. He's got a real tough challenge this week. I could see him moving down or
Yeah.
Herbert maybe hopping a tier, but that's what stands out to me right off the bat.
Yeah, I guess for Herbert, he is going against the Panthers, so like I definitely missed this for the running back, but yeah, J.K. Dobbins against the Panthers, like I think he's also a must start like Mason. Like if you have him as a third running back, like or fourth, like you have to get him in there somehow. But going back to Fields, like he only had like 10 or 11 fantasy points, but he didn't score a touchdown at all, and he had like 7 for 50 on the ground. So like if he scores like 1 or 2 touchdowns, like easily 20 points, like that's the floor. That's kind of crazy. Usually, if you don't score at all, like you're not even usable for fantasy. But I mean, like for a quarterback, 10 points, like for basically not much passing production, is pretty good just off of rushing.
I mean, I don't know. Colin, I got a question for you, man. So,
Sure.
the Steelers playing the Falcons last week, right? It was Arthur Smith revenge game. If you look at Justin Fields' throw chart from that game, he didn't throw a single pass to the middle of the field. So, do you think that that was more a result of Justin Fields' skill set as a passer, or did Arthur Smith know something about that defense being strong over the middle and susceptible on the edge?
I think it's going to be a little bit of both. I mean, we thought Russell Wilson was going to be the starter for not even a week before the game. So my guess is
Yeah,
they
that's
were
true.
trying to just simplify the game plan a little bit for Fields, but at the same time, Arthur Smith knowing the defense is weak over the middle. I would not be shocked to learn that he knew let's stay away from this area and just focus on the outsides. But at the same time, they kicked 6 field goals for a reason. So I'm gonna leave it to a bit of both, but I don't know because at the same point, I love Justin Fields. I want him to succeed, but at the same time, I'm also gonna accept that he's not that good of a quarterback.
Yeah, for sure. The passing ceiling definitely not that high. Like with like Kyler Murray or even if Jay Daniels has a pretty good matchup against the Giants defense. I mean, if he's gonna show something, it would be this week. Um, but yeah, I guess definitely in terms of like I guess someone moving up to the S tier. I I want to put Jane Daniels up there, but it's just like I'm because I heard that they might limit his rushing attempts because he ran even more than like Lamar Jackson did. Like that was crazy. That's not and he's way lighter than Lamar too, so that's not sustainable. But yeah, what do you guys think about the rest of these quarterbacks?
I mean, it looks pretty good to me, Andrew. There's a part of me
Yeah.
that wants to bump up Stroud, but the Bears defense is real, man. And if they get some guys healthy back on the D line, like the Texans are really good on offense. I mean, they're gonna get theirs, but that's really the only hesitation about me making CJ Stroud a must start. Um, I don't know, like
Yeah.
how do you guys feel about Kyler Murray against the Rams? He's got a decent track record going against them.
Yeah, I think he would definitely be the one that if he has the rushing feeling like because I said last recall I don't think he ran that much against Buffalo. Like he like overall stat wise he didn't have a big day. Um, so yeah, I guess he could. He has at least both the passing and rushing ceiling potential like over these other guys. But yeah, Colin, do you have a final note to say about any of these quarterbacks?
Baker, I think, can once again finish as the number one QB this week just because of his weapons around him and the matchup against the Lions. That's going to be a high score. And I'm with you on that one, Cody. Baker to the moon.
Hell yeah.
I want him to
Yeah.
play the Browns again. He needs his redemption.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I want that. I want that again. But if I had to bump someone down from the S tier, I bumped down Mahomes purely because I think the Bengals is gonna be a blowout and we're gonna bench him because we're beating them so bad. Like
I
the
mean,
Bears.
yeah, you can't rule that out. That's definitely happened before.
That's the only thing I think that could keep Mahomes in A tier. But then again, I might also just be wanting to make a hot take. So I would put him at like A plus tier ahead of everyone.
Yeah.
But if I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, I think this is good. We can leave it at that. But yeah, any final plugs before we send off? Cody, you can start.
Yeah, man. I'm just gonna button it up with Mahomes talk, man. I think as a Raiders fan, it pains me to praise the Chiefs, but you got to do it, man. They're just too smart. They're just too good. And Patrick Mahomes having a subpar day for fantasy still usually equates to a Chiefs win. He's not going to need to be Superman to beat the Bengals this year. So I think moving him down a tier is fine. And yeah, I think let's see some bounce back games from some tight ends that had a rough week. If you guys had to pick one tight end as like your ride or die, whatever you want to call it, who are you going to go with this week?
Yeah, Colin, you can start.
I'm debating between three right now. Kelsey, Andrews, and Kincaid. I'm a little scared of Kincaid because the game is in Miami, and Bills players typically have a bad week with its early Miami games. Kelsey, he could have a bounce. I'm going to go with Kelsey. I'm going to think, hey, the Chiefs players' rivalry against the Bengals, they want to beat them into the ground. They want to remind them that it's Arrowhead, not Burrowhead. So
Yeah,
I think Kelsey's going to score at least twice this game.
yeah, I think Andrews historically doesn't have good games against the Chiefs because Steve Spagnuolo just, he brackets him every game. So I would not be surprised if Andrews is the tight end one for Baltimore. I mean, just because I feel like likely big games have been in competitive games. So if it's like like the Ravens are up by 2 scores or more, I don't know how much they need likely to win that game. But at least early, I think they want to feature Andrews a little bit more, for sure.
Right on. And I guess as much as I want to say it's going to be a bounce back game tonight for our boy Dalton Kincaid, it just I don't know. I just it's too narrow of a target distribution there. So I'm going to go with my guy from earlier, Dallas Goedert, bounce back game this week for Philly against Atlanta. That's
All
my
right,
guy.
nice. Yeah. But that's gonna do it. Collin, where can they find your socials or your work?
They can find me at the GP Football on TikTok.
Nice. Cody.
On X, I'm Cody _from_MT. And on Instagram, I'm at Scenic42.
Great. But yeah, follow Total Apex Sports, fantasy, gaming, bets, and entertainment. But yeah, hopefully week 2 is a rebound for a lot of players. But